There was something sterile about the new office they gave Ling, windowless, tucked behind the server room, with humming fluorescent lights that flickered just enough to be irritating. The carpets smelled faintly of old coffee and damp paper. It didn't matter, she told herself. It was quiet. It was hers. And she had work to finish. For the past 14 months, Ling had been developing an advanced logistics model for a regional shipping company called Silver River Freight. The algorithm she designed, affectionately dubbed Aquila, was revolutionary, a predictive engine that analyzed fuel costs, road congestion, weather anomalies, and shipment weights in real time. It could recalculate freight prices dynamically, potentially saving Silver River over $3.2 million annually. It was her life's work, stitched together during sleepless nights with nothing but lo-fi beats and cheap instant noodles for company. No one had asked her to build it. She did it because she saw the future, and she knew the company would need it before they even realized it. And yet, as she paused to stretch her legs that Thursday evening, she learned exactly how disposable she was. She stepped out of her room to refill her tea when she heard voices behind the executive suite door, slightly ajar. The door to the founder's lounge was supposed to be soundproof, but the thin walls and poor construction betrayed them. A familiar voice laughed. Cocky. Loud. Tone, the CEO's son, recently back from an overpriced MBA overseas, with shiny shoes and empty buzzwords. She's almost done with the model, he said. As soon as she sends it, we let her go. Ling froze in the hallway. Her name hadn't been mentioned, but she knew exactly who she was. A female voice giggled in response. You promised me something bigger than marketing assistant. And you'll get it, babe. You'll be running the data team by the end of the quarter. It's just code. She built it. Now we run with it. Ling's chest tightened. She took a shaky breath. That voice, it belonged to Nga, the CEO's new favorite intern, a TikTok influencer with a business mindset and zero coding experience. I trained under the CTO, Ling whispered bitterly to herself, backing away from the door. I built the model from scratch. But they didn't care. Tone's voice floated out again, smug and thick with entitlement. She's one of those loyal types. Probably thinks hard work gets her promoted. She won't see it coming. Ling turned and walked away before her rage boiled over. No. She wouldn't cry. She wouldn't yell. She would plan. The next morning, Ling arrived at the office at 6 a.m., hours before anyone else. She brought in a hard drive, encrypted and fireproofed. She carefully copied everything but not everything. Aquila's heart, the core algorithm, never touched the company servers. That part? It lived on her personal laptop, developed off hours, in her own space, outside any corporate contract. It had its own structure, its own logs, its own pulse. Without it, the entire model would look complete. Until someone actually tried to use it. For the next 2 weeks, she played her part flawlessly. Smiling. Helpful. Polite. She even answered Nga's insipid questions with patient nods. What does machine learning weight mean again? Oh, that's just part of how the algorithm balances variables, Ling would say, knowing full well Nga couldn't define half the words she used. Tone dropped by her desk, too, acting overly friendly. How's it going, Ling? He asked one afternoon. Oh, it's going, she said, with a smile sweet enough to curdle milk. He grinned, already thinking she was clueless. The final version of the pricing model, sans the core module, was uploaded on a quiet Thursday night. Ling titled the file Aquila_pricing_final_v1.0. She even left well-written documentation and tidy comments in the code. Then, she logged off, slid her employee badge into an envelope, and left it on HR's desk. She didn't need to wait for the formal dismissal. She walked out before they could fire her. By the next morning, her prediction had come true. A calendar invite popped up, exit interview, Ling Wen, 10:30 a.m. She didn't show up. Instead, She spent the morning drinking iced coffee by the river, smiling quietly to herself as emails and texts went unanswered. Let them sweat. 3 days later, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. Voicemail. Hi, this is Long from Silver River's Tech Compliance Division. We're having issues accessing one of the submodules in the pricing algorithm. It seems to be either missing or corrupt. Please call us back as soon as possible. Ling replayed it 3 times, sipping her tea. Not out of spite. Out of confirmation. They'd tried to use Aquila. And it had failed, just as she planned. By the following week, the cracks were widening. More emails. Subject lines grew increasingly urgent. Critical, missing file segment, Aquila. System failure during client demo. Immediate assistance requested. Still, Ling stayed silent. She checked her LinkedIn instead. Her recent post, something philosophical about ownership, dignity, and walking away from toxicity, was trending. Over 20,000 views. Comments from fellow developers, female engineers, even ex-employees of Silver River applauding her strength without knowing the full story. And one view from Tone Tran, CEO's son. Of course. Then came the message she'd been waiting for. A personal text from Tone himself. Ling, we need to talk. Things are complicated. Please call me. We really need your help. She read it twice. Then she locked her phone. Let them sweat longer. By the time Silver River's leadership realized the pricing model didn't work, Ling had already prepared for every possible response. They would deny, deflect, then panic. And just like clockwork, they were following the pattern. The first wave was polite confusion. Then it became urgency. By now, it had turned into full-blown desperation. She received 4 emails and 2 voicemails in one morning alone. The latest was from the company's finance director, a man she'd only met once, in passing, during a team lunch. Hi Ling. I hope this message finds you well. We've run into some difficulties with the predictive engine you developed. We believe some components might not have transferred correctly. It's critical that we resolve this immediately. If you're available for a brief consult, we'd deeply appreciate it. She almost laughed at the phrasing, some components might not have transferred correctly. No, she thought. They transferred exactly what I wanted you to have. The truth was simple. The heart of Aquila never left her personal laptop. The main function, Quave, was the intelligence behind the pricing system. Without it, the rest was just scaffolding. It would load. It might even run a few simulations. But the outputs would be useless, null values, wild price swings, empty charts. From the outside, it still looked like a complete product. But inside? It was hollow. She imagined the scene in Silver River's boardroom, PowerPoints flickering on giant screens, anxious tech leads scrambling, someone clicking run model only to be met with error logs and frozen projections. Investors watching. Clients waiting. Tone sweating through his shirt. Ling smiled and sipped her coffee. She wasn't in a rush. Let them sit with their mistake. That afternoon, a familiar name popped up on her caller ID. Margot Duong, the company's senior PM and one-time mentor. Once upon a time, Margot had championed Ling's early work, even coached her on office politics. But when Tone arrived, Margot stayed silent. Looked the other way. Let the promotion promises go unchecked. Now she was calling. Ling answered. Hi Margot, she said, tone neutral. Ling, thank God. Look, I know this is awkward. We just need a small clarification. Something in the algorithm is misfiring. That's unfortunate, Ling replied flatly. But I'm not employed there anymore. Margot's voice dropped to a whisper. Tone is asking if you'd consider consulting. Just short term. Of course, we'd compensate you. Ling leaned back in her chair. I'll think about it. But she already knew her answer. That night, she pulled out her original development logs, Git commits, network IPs, even webcam footage of her coding at home during off hours. She'd built Aquila's core after 6 p.m., using her own equipment, with no access to Silver River's systems. The logs were precise. The legal terms airtight. Clause 14.3 in her contract was clear: anything created outside of company time and infrastructure remained personal intellectual property unless explicitly transferred. She hadn't transferred a thing. Just to be safe, she emailed the complete documentation to her lawyer, along with a message, in case they come after me for it. The next day, she checked LinkedIn. Her post, "Never let them convince you that silence equals loyalty," had gone semi-viral. Over 40,000 views. Recruiters reaching out. Startups interested. A few old co-workers commenting things like, clapping hands emoji, you're incredible and we saw what they did. But the most satisfying view? Tone Tran. Again. He had checked her profile 4 times in the last 2 days. She pictured him in his sleek little corner office, eyes wide, heart racing, as everything he thought he owned crumbled beneath him. That evening, Ling received an email that stopped her mid-scroll. Subject: confidential meeting request, from Silver River Executive Committee. Sender: Executive Assistant to Madame Bui, Chairwoman of the Board. Miss Wynne. Madame Bui has requested a private video call to discuss a sensitive matter regarding your previous work at Silver River Freight. This conversation will be considered off the record unless otherwise noted. This wasn't Tone. This wasn't HR. This was the board. And now they were finally looking beyond the noise. She messaged her lawyer immediately. "Should I take this?" His reply was short. "Yes. Record everything. Say nothing without us." By noon the next day, Ling was dressed in a navy blazer, subtle makeup, and a quiet determination. She entered the Zoom meeting calmly. On the other end, Madame Bui, a sharp woman known for her no-nonsense approach, was seated in front of a plain background, the Silver River logo barely visible behind her. "Miss Wynne," she greeted. "Thank you for your time." "Of course," Ling said. "I was curious." We didn't waste a second. "We've been informed that the predictive pricing system is malfunctioning. Our tech team suggests the core algorithm is missing or corrupted." Ling nodded. "That sounds accurate. Tone insists the system was finalized before your exit." "I completed everything I was asked to deliver," Ling replied calmly. "The modules I provided matched the contract scope." There was a pause. Then the real question came. "Do you still have access to the missing algorithm?" Ling didn't smile. But her eyes held the answer. "I created that module independently. On my own time. On personal equipment. The version history and development logs reflect this. I retained ownership." Bui nodded slowly. "Would you be open to negotiating a licensing agreement?" There it was. A shift in power. No more assumptions. No more arrogance. They were asking now. Not telling. "I'd consider it," Ling said, "but only through official channels, and under the guidance of my attorney." "Understood," Madame Bui replied. The call ended without small talk. But Ling felt the tectonic plate shift beneath her feet. 2 days later, the company's acting CFO, Mr. Fawn, called directly. He didn't bother with flattery. "Ling, we're in trouble," he said. Corp, the East Coast logistics partner, tied their contract renewal to this tool. They've already run the model. The results were disastrous. We're looking at potential breach penalties. "And Dean, sorry, Tone?" Ling asked. "Not handling it well." Ling could picture it. The yelling. The excuses. Fawn cleared his throat. "We'd like to propose a paid licensing agreement. Retroactive pay for the development. And, if you're willing, consultation to finalize it for Corp." Ling didn't hesitate. "I'm open to that. But there are conditions." "Of course. What kind?" 1. My lawyer handles all terms. 2. I don't answer to Tone. 3. Full attribution. My name stays on every line it powers." There was a long pause. Then Fawn said, "We'll draw up the paperwork." As Ling ended the call, she stared at her monitor. She pulled up her old project files. And there it was, Aquila, glowing like a quiet storm waiting to be unleashed. They had tried to erase her. But now, they were begging for what only she could give. And Ling? She had never felt more in control. Ling walked through the glass doors of Silver River Freight not as an employee, not as a consultant, but as the architect of their salvation. Gone was the timid engineer tucked behind server rooms. Today, she moved with purpose. Her heels tapped clean and confident against the tiled lobby floor. No escort. No badge. Just a temporary pass handed to her with wide eyes and a quiet "they're waiting for you upstairs." And oh, they were. The executive boardroom on the 21st floor was buzzing when she stepped in. The long walnut table sat 6 department heads, including CFO Fawn and Margot, the once silent PM. Across from them was a projection screen displaying a demo of Aquila's failed simulation, a kaleidoscope of zeros, broken charts, and mockery. It looked impressive at first glance, until it tried to run. Then it fell apart, like a skyscraper built on sand. Ling stood by the screen and calmly opened her laptop. "Before we begin," she said, voice level, "I want to make it clear, I'm not here to rescue bad decisions. I am here to protect what I built." No one interrupted. She clicked a button. A new window opened, Aquila's true version, the one she had safeguarded in silence. With one tap, the dashboard lit up. Real-time fuel data flowed in. Shipment weights adjusted per carrier. Forecast windows recalculated on the fly. And the boardroom went dead quiet. Margot leaned forward, her voice hesitant. "So, this is the full version?" Ling didn't look at her. "This is the version I was never given the chance to present." Fawn nodded. "And it works? Run it yourself." He did. The charts processed, rendered, projected freight cost savings across the Midwest distribution zones. A 12% optimization margin appeared in red, then green. Fawn blinked. "This would have saved us nearly $4 million by Q3. Ling said nothing. She let the numbers speak. Margot looked down at her notes, ashamed. "We didn't know." Ling turned to her. "You didn't ask." The meeting turned to logistics, and soon Fawn was reviewing her contract terms. Her lawyer had been meticulous: retroactive pay for off-hours development, a 3-year licensing agreement, and a public attribution clause. Developed by Carter Systems, founder, Ling Wen. But that wasn't the part that stung most. It was the line about non-interference. Ling would report directly to the executive committee. Tone would be nowhere near her work. In fact, Tone was nowhere to be seen. That was intentional. The truth had unraveled faster than Ling expected. Shortly after her return, a senior developer named Bao approached her discreetly in the hallway. He was the kind who always wore noise-canceling headphones, rarely said more than 2 words. That day, he pulled a USB from his pocket and said, "You'll want to see this." Inside were archived project logs, commits, version histories, Slack messages, all untouched and timestamped. Ling's name was on every original module. But the latest edits? They bore Leia's name. The issue? Leia didn't even know how to code. They tried to fake contributions, Bao said quietly. Swapped metadata. Changed headers. But the structure? The logic? It's all yours. She nodded. "Thank you." But the worst was still coming. That Friday, a document leaked from HR, an internal complaint buried in archived emails. A whistleblower had flagged Dean's reassignment plan for Ling 6 weeks before she was let go. Attached was a sentence that made Ling's stomach turn. "Just let her finish the algorithm. We'll have Leia shadow her for a week and flip her out. She's quiet. She won't push back." That file made it to Madame Bui within hours. And once it did, the silence ended. By Monday, Tone was suspended pending an internal investigation. He didn't show up to the office. HR began calling in team leads one by one for confidential interviews. The whispers grew louder. "I heard he forged the commit logs. They booked a conference in Napa under a training budget. Didn't he expense a drone for aerial logistics mapping?" That wasn't even his girlfriend. That was someone's niece. Leah's name vanished from the company directory. No email. No statement. Just deleted. Meanwhile, Ling kept working. Her new office, top floor, sunlight, real plants, and a team that actually asked for her opinion, was a world apart from where she started. Developers stopped by more frequently now. Some brought coffee. Others came with questions. One afternoon, a junior coder named Vi peeked in. "Can I ask you something?" she said nervously. "Of course," Ling replied. "Everyone's talking about what happened. The sabotage. The comeback. I guess I just want to know. How did you not give up?" Ling paused. Then said, "Because I knew I was right. And when you know you're right, you don't need to shout. You just need to outlast them." Vi smiled and said softly, "I hope I grow up to be like you." Ling looked at her, really looked at her, and realized something she hadn't until that moment. She wasn't just rebuilding a model. She was rebuilding belief. By Friday, it was official. An internal memo from the board. Dean Tran is no longer with Silver River Freight, effective immediately. The board thanks Ms. Ling Wen for her leadership and integrity. The staff Slack exploded. Some cheers. Some gasps. But mostly? Relief. Order was being restored. And the person restoring it? Was the one they tried to erase. The day after the internal memo confirmed Tone's departure, the mood inside Silver River Freight changed. It wasn't just relief, it was recalibration. Conversations were quieter, glances more cautious, and meetings actually started on time. But for Ling, the shift wasn't just professional. It was personal. Because now, no one could pretend she hadn't been right all along. And the code, the blueprint they once tried to steal, was hers again, in every sense of the word. Ling sat in her new office, which still smelled faintly of fresh paint and new leather. The plaque on her door now read, Ling Wen, Director of Predictive Systems, Silver River Freight, Consulting. She'd insisted on the consulting part. She wasn't rejoining the company. She was contracting. On her terms. Her timeline. Her price. Everything she'd once done in silence was now being celebrated in the open. Still, the cleanup was messy. 3 days into her transition, Ling discovered that Aquila's sandbox environment had been tampered with, again. This time, someone had tried to overwrite one of the archived simulation models, likely in a last-ditch effort to erase traces of who originally built the system. But they underestimated Ling. Code has fingerprints. Function names, indent habits, even how someone comments their logic, it's all uniquely human. And every line that mattered was hers. With help from Bao and Vi, Ling performed a forensic audit of the entire system architecture. What they found was worse than she expected. 3 data scripts pulled from open-source libraries but labeled proprietary in the logs. A data visualization module plagiarized, ironically, from a failed competitor's GitHub. And most damning, an expense report labeled Aquila Infrastructure Dev that tracked payments to a private consulting firm linked to one of Tone's college friends. None of it was legal. All of it was arrogant. Ling compiled the findings and walked them straight to Madame Bui's office. The chairwoman read silently for several minutes, her brows drawn tighter with each page. When she finally looked up, her voice was low. "How deep does this go?" "I don't know," Ling said. "But this was never about just replacing me. This was about building an empire off of someone else's work, and pretending the bricks were theirs." Bui tapped the report with 2 fingers. "This is enough to trigger a full board inquiry." Ling nodded. "Then it's time." The next day, the board launched a Phase 2 internal review, not just of Tone's decisions, but of executive oversight, project funding, and HR practices. Anonymous testimonials began pouring in. People who had been silenced, sidelined, or subtly threatened during Tone's reign came forward. Junior engineers. Women in mid-level management. Even a few former interns who admitted they had been pushed to falsify documentation for bonus credits. It was ugly. But it was honest. And Ling made sure every word was heard. As the audit unfolded, Ling turned her attention back to Aquila. For the first time in months, she wasn't patching broken code or cleaning up sabotage. She was building forward. She redesigned the dashboard to allow for greater customization by shipping managers. She implemented a transparency layer, so clients could see how cost projections were calculated in real time. She added a feature that allowed for scenario modeling, a tool she dreamed up months ago but never had time to prototype. Now, she had time. Now, she had backing. Now, she had freedom. One afternoon, while reviewing new team applications, Ling got a knock at her door. It was Margot. This time, she didn't have that polished project manager energy. She looked tired, sincere. "Got a second?" she asked. Ling motioned for her to sit. Margot didn't waste time. "I should have stood up when they pushed you out. I knew what they were doing, but I told myself it wasn't my place." Ling was quiet. "I'm sorry," Margot continued. "Not just because it blew up in their face, but because I know how that kind of silence feels." For the first time, Ling saw the woman she'd once admired. "I accept the apology," she said gently. "But don't waste it. Speak up for the next person." Margot nodded, a little choked. "I will." A week later, Silver River Freight issued a public statement. "We acknowledge past failures in leadership and project integrity. We're committed to accountability, transparency, and elevating the people who drive innovation forward." Attached was a press release announcing a new partnership with Carter Systems, the consulting firm Ling had quietly launched during her downtime. The details were clear. Ling would oversee all AI and logistics development at Silver River. Her firm would retain ownership of all intellectual property it developed. Attribution would be non-negotiable. And just like that, the blueprint they tried to bury became the foundation of a new future, with her name carved into every corner. That night, Ling got home late. She sat at her desk, opened her personal laptop, and pulled up the original Aquila prototype. She ran the simulation one more time, just to watch it breathe. Smooth curves. Clean code. Flawless logic. And in the corner of the screen. "Developed by Ling Wen, Carter Systems." It wasn't just code anymore. It was proof. Proof that no matter how deeply they tried to bury her, she'd already built her way out. The air was cool the morning Ling walked out of Silver River Freight for the last time. No cardboard box in her hands. No bitter farewell emails. No security escort watching her like a threat. Just her laptop in a leather sleeve and a quiet, satisfied smile. This wasn't a walk of shame. This was a declaration. A gentle closing of a chapter she rewrote entirely on her terms. It had been 3 weeks since the internal review concluded, and in that short time, Ling had not only salvaged Aquila, she had elevated it. Her revised model now powered logistics forecasting for Silver River's 3 largest regional hubs. The board credited her system with stabilizing client renewals and averting a $5.2 million quarterly loss. But more than the numbers, more than the applause, more than the headlines that had started circling in the logistics tech world, what mattered most to Ling was the message it sent. You can't erase the architect. The morning after her exit, Ling officially launched Carter Systems, her boutique AI consulting firm, built for developers like her. Coders who were passed over for promotion because they weren't loud enough. Analysts who trained themselves after hours and still had their work stolen. Women. Minorities. Underdogs. People who built the machine while others stood in front of it and smiled for the camera. Her company wasn't just a service provider. It was a statement. The messages began pouring in within days. Your story gave me courage to file a grievance. I showed my CTO what you did. He wants to talk. I've never met you, but I feel like I know you. Thank you for proving it's possible. Some were public. Some were anonymous. All of them carried the same hope. That maybe, just maybe, there was room in the industry for builders who didn't play dirty. Ling read each one. And replied to as many as she could. One particular email caught her eye. Subject: Lang Corp, Executive Strategy Lead Role Inquiry. From Monica Greer. We're looking to overhaul our internal predictive systems. After seeing what you did at Silver River, we're convinced you're the person to lead it. Not consult. Lead. Are you open to a long-term partnership? Ling sat back in her chair, stunned for a moment. Lang Corp wasn't just a client, they were one of the largest shipping conglomerates in the Eastern Hemisphere. If Silver River was a proving ground, Lang Corp was the mountain range. She smiled and typed back. Let's talk. But on one condition: I build the team. My team. Meanwhile, Silver River scrambled to manage the fallout from Dean's firing. Articles had begun surfacing, discreet at first, then louder. Logistics giant rocked by internal sabotage scandal. Engineer turned entrepreneur after quiet quit Silver River Freight. Inside sources had begun leaking snippets from the audit. The Napa trips. The expense fraud. The metadata manipulation. Someone even leaked the original Slack message. Just let her finish the algorithm. We'll flip her out afterward. That sentence, once meant to erase her, became the symbol of her rise. Leah had vanished entirely. No new job posts. No farewell messages. Not even a LinkedIn update. Tone, last Ling heard, was holed up overseas, his father's last favor before the board had frozen his shares and removed him from the company charter. Justice had not come with fireworks. It had come with facts. And facts don't apologize. Back in her home office, now upgraded with a standing desk and a quiet view of the lake, Ling updated the whiteboard on her wall. Carter Systems, Q1 Objectives. Finalize Lang Corp proposal. Hire 3 junior devs, prioritize non-traditional paths. Launch mentorship track. Speak at Women in Tech Southeast Asia Summit. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rewriting the rules. That weekend, Ling received a letter, yes, a real one, in an envelope. There was no sender listed, but the handwriting was familiar. She opened it slowly, her pulse steady. Ling. You probably won't believe me when I say this, but I did respect your work. I got caught up in the pressure to perform. The expectations. The image. I thought if I could just deliver one big win, it would all be worth it. I know I made a mistake. Multiple. And I don't expect you to forgive me. But I hope, someday, you can believe I didn't start out trying to hurt you. I just didn't stop myself when I had the chance. There was no signature. But it didn't need one. She read it once. Then she fed it through her shredder. Closure wasn't something he got to ask for. The next Monday, Ling walked into a co-working space downtown, where her new team would meet for the first time. Vi was already there, along with 2 new hires, one a former barista who taught herself JavaScript at night, the other a single dad who used to drive freight and now built logistics dashboards in Python. This, Ling said, setting her laptop on the table, is where we start. No hierarchy? Vi asked, grinning. Only mentorship, Ling replied. They smiled and opened their laptops. Carter Systems was live. Later that evening, Ling stood alone by the windows of the co-working space, watching the city pulse with neon and motion. She wasn't thinking about Tone. Or Leah. Or Silver River. She was thinking about the quiet moment in that server room office. The coffee-stained carpet. The walls that didn't block whispers. And how that one overheard conversation changed everything. They had tried to replace her before she even finished building. Now, they couldn't launch without her. She pulled out her phone and snapped a picture of the team working behind her. Then she posted it with a caption. Build boldly. Build quietly. But most of all, build like they can't erase you. #architect, not assistant. #rise, anyway. Within minutes, it started spreading. But Ling was already back to work. Because this wasn't about vindication. This was about creation. And no one could take that from her again.